Thanks again for joining us today. I'm Andrew Deaver, and I'm the marketing manager here at Mozenda. So today we're tackling XPath. We're joined today by Kenneth Bedwell, our support team lead, and he'll go ahead and show us the ins and outs of using XPath in Mozenda. So we've actually had pretty good feedback on our other webinars so far, and many requests to cover this particular topic, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Hey, thanks for joining us today, Kenneth.
It's great to be here.
Good. I'll kick things off today with a brief presentation about what XPath is and, of course, why we use it here at Mozenda and why it's such a prominent topic. Before we get started, I want to point out that you really don't have to be a programmer to understand XPath, and this particular presentation is geared towards helping beginners and even moderately experienced users be more successful with Mozenda by using this tool as effectively as possible. As a reminder, there is a questions box, so you can enter those in during the presentation. Feel free to type those in as we go along. We may have some time for answers during the webinar, but if not, we'll make sure to follow up with you shortly afterwards. Okay, so first things first, the term XPath is short for XML Path Language, and we'll explore in a minute a little bit more what that means. So basically, it's a query language for selecting elements from an XML, or in our case, an HTML document. So now we'll talk about why it is that we use it. Really, in plain English, XPath is a way to isolate or select parts of a web page, which are often called elements, right? In order for the Mozenda software to function, certain elements from a web page have to be isolated or selected for interaction or collection purposes. In a very similar way to the way that you visit a website and zero in on, say, a phone number, a price, or an image, our software also has to narrow down which objects require interaction. So XPath is a very effective way of accomplishing that. And on top of that, XPath is robust and flexible enough to navigate even complex web pages, which, of course, we'll be exploring in greater detail later. So let's talk about briefly how XPath works in practice. As I mentioned earlier, elements need to be selected by our software in order to use the website in an automated fashion. This is possible because XML documents have a hierarchy-based structure, also called an XML tree, that shows how elements are related. So here's a quick snippet of example HTML markup that I'll be using to demonstrate how XPath uses a document structure. First, HTML uses what's called angle brackets, which are these right here, to start an element. So these are referred to as tags, and most elements start with an opening tag, like this, and they'll close with an end tag. In this case, it's that last tag. Everything between those tags are part of this element, which also contains other elements, as you can see here. Now, all of the elements on this page, or in this example page, but in all web pages basically, have relationships. Sometimes these are referred to as axes. This is a foundational aspect of using XPath and is very important to understanding how all of this will come together once we start delving into the syntax with Kenneth. As a reminder, even if you're looking at this something like this for the first time, there's no need to worry. These relationships are actually very simple to understand. First, there's the child and parent, which looks like this. The relationship here is pretty obvious. The child element is contained directly within the parent element. And this example is also true because the child elements are contained within that same parent element. Next, we have the sibling and self. If the first paragraph, so if in this case, if the first P or paragraph tag is currently selected, the other elements belonging to the same parent are its siblings. And self simply references the current element. And we'll see examples of that later on with Kenneth. The last one is the ancestor and descendant relationship. So as you can see here, there's more than one parent between the P tag or the paragraph tag and the starting div tag. So the first div tag is the ancestor of its child's elements. So now to start covering how XPath syntax works and digging into some real examples. That's why we have Kenneth here. I'll go ahead and pass the time over to Kenneth, and we'll be exploring some of that right now. I'll go ahead and switch that over to you here, Kenneth.
All right. Let's see. All right. This is Andrew. You're able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go over some syntax for the actual XPath itself, and I just wanted to start because to show you guys how we get into the XPath and how we work on it, and different ways you can view it in the builder. So I just picked a government website, congress.gov. We're going to go to congress.gov/members and bills. We're going to look at some bills as well, just for some examples. But say you're in this site and you're wanting to look at the XPath for your captures. So first thing I can do is I can just right-click on this blue bar and say XPath. Now, that'll just show me the actual XPath of my captures. When I hit a capture and I just say capture the name, it's just going to show me the location of where this text is found, which is its XPath. Now, that doesn't show me the entire HTML document and all the other XPaths that I want to use. So what I want to use is the DOM element. So I'm going to check that box as well. So now I have the DOM and I have the XPath. And something we like to do in support and working on a lot of agents, because we use the DOM and the XPath at the same time, is we take it and we drag it on. We take the XPath and we drag it on top of the DOM element, like so. I'm just going to do that right now. It's usually this one right there. So now I can see my XPath and I can see the entire HTML text body in this right here in the DOM element at once. And now I can have fun with it. And I can take my XPath and I can say, okay, show me what you're capturing. And I just paste it right here and it'll update and take me right there. All right, so the first thing I wanted to kind of talk about is more the syntax for what Andrew just discussed, was with the ancestor, descendant, child, sibling, and parent. So we're going to use this as an example. So this A tag right here, we'll just say this is our self. This is basically who you are. And the way I like to think about XPath is kind of like, like your lineage or genealogy in that sense, is, who are your parents, who are your grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, and so on. And when you think of it that way, it's very simple. But kind of going into the syntax, so for a parent, so this A tag is a self, so the parent here would be the span tag. And the syntax would simply be, we always do a / if we're going to go forward or backwards. And then I say ... And what that allows me to do is it'll just take me back up. So if I continue to do that, it'll keep going. It'll go to the parent always like that. Oh. Let's do that again. Okay. Now, if I wanted to go to, let's see, back to myself again, this A tag. If I wanted to go to my grandparent, which is, so the span is the parent, the grandparent is the LI tag. So I would say ancestor. So let's say ancestor. This is 2 colons, and then whichever is the tag I wanted to go to before. So in this case, I said the LI, which is the grandparent, and I went to the grandparent. So that's that. The next one would be to do a sibling. So let's go to the parent, because this self doesn't have any siblings. So the parent does have a sibling. The span has 2 siblings. I have a div1 and a div2 right here. So now in this sense, the div, if you say div1, it'll take you here. So if I want to go to my, I guess you can call it your older sibling, this div right here, I can say / preceding - sibling, and then div, because there's only one div. And that will take me up to my older sibling. Now, if I wanted to take it to my, start over again. If I wanted to take it to my younger sibling, So we're back at the span, so self, the parent sibling, which is the span. I'll take it to my younger sibling, this div. I can say / following sibling, and then div. And it will take me to my younger sibling here. Now, sometimes if you look, you'll have multiple, you might have multiple ones, so you'll have to specify. So if it's your, say it's the second div, you have two following siblings, and you want to go to the second div, then you'll just have to specify and say div 2. But that div doesn't exist, so we can just say div 1 or leave it as is with div. And it knows because you're doing the following sibling. All right. Now, what if let's go to the span here, the parent, and let's say that I wanted to get back to the child without deleting this information right here. What I could say, so this is basically a descendant. The next one would just simply say / then the child, which is A. Now, let's go to its ancestor, the grandparent again, and which was the LI tag. So here I am at the LI tag, and I want to I want to skip the parent, which is the span, and I want to go all the way to the A tag. So what I do is I say 2 /, this is descendant, and then A. Let's see, I think it's A1. Oops. Should let me do that. So skipping, I don't know why it's not letting me do it, but skipping allows you to go. So if you look at this example right here, let me ignore this. If we look at this one, you'll see 2 / and then a star, and then it skips. And this basically says skip to the descendant that looks like this, skip to the next descendant that looks like this, and then follow it down. And that's what we can use for descendant. So let's actually play around with some syntax in a little more detail and with this capture, because this page is really good. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. It's going to get rid of the XPath right there, and I'm going to capture a list. So something interesting with this site is you'll notice that, and I'll call this name. So it's going to capture all these senators and representatives. Now on this page, on the first page, there's only, I think it's just alphabetical order, but there's only 100. But if I look at my capture text preview, there are 200, and everyone is duplicated. All the names are duplicated. And so if you see this, you know, okay, I'm going to have to do something with the XPath. And what's going on is that if I go over here, there's expanded and compact. And I even look in the DOM element, and let's highlight over someone's name. Okay, so if I look at the LI tag, expanded, and then I look again, compact. Let's see, where is his name? There it is. There's a duplicate. There's representation of the name twice because of the compact and the expanded. And so what I need to do is I need to fix this XPath. Now, when you see this capture right here, you'll notice that there's line 1 and line 2. Line 2 is the start of the XPath all the way to the beginning, so the HTML one, like Adam or wherever people started from the lineage. But this is the shortened version, so it's saying look for anything that has this and go all the way to that. So I can actually get rid of this line right here and just start with this. Now, what I want to do is I want to fix this. I want to say, hey, only look for people that say, I want to only look for the expanded. It doesn't really matter. But I just want to have one. I don't want to have both. So I don't fix this XPath. I'm going to look here and say, only get this tag right here, this LI tag right here with this A tag in the name. So what I want to do is fix this one. So what I'll do is I'll go right here and I'll say open bracket, and to identify a node, which is the class, I'll say at class equals open quotes, because it's going to be open quotes, exactly how this is spelled out right here. At class equals, and then I'll put expanded, close quote, like that. All right, and that should give me 100. There you go, and no duplicates. Now, so let's go back to the DOM here. So I'll do that. Now the next thing I want to do let's say that you notice here that there's senators and representatives, and I only want to look at senators. I don't want to look at the representatives. So I only want the names that are senators. So what I'll do is this syntax is called contains. Now this contains, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go in and look at the A tag here, and I only wanted to tell me, grab an A tag that has the word senator in it and not representative. So what we'll do is I'll build it out in the DOM element first, and I would suggest building things out in your DOM element just so you can practice and see if you mess up, it'll highlight red. It's just easier, and then you copy and paste that into your XPath. So let's say, okay, I only want an A tag if it contains a senator. So the syntax is just simply contains, open parentheses, period. So the period represents the self. You're referencing the A tag, and then comma, which is basically an equals. But it's not a full-on equal because we're not going to say Senator Abner James. We're just going to say senator. That's why we're doing a comma, not an equals. And then open apostrophe senator, and then close. All right. And so what this will do, let me just copy this right here. The contains, copy, and I'm going to put it in my A tag. If it'll let me, and paste. Okay, let's check it out. Oh, now I only have senators. There are only 20 senators on the page, which is fine. So yeah, now I've got senators, which is great. Now what I want to do is I want to get, let's see, let's say for some reason there weren't just senators and representatives, there was just a mix of different people on the page, and I wanted to have two contains. I said, okay, I only want people in Congress that are a representative and a senator. I don't want any mailmen. I don't want any presidents or anything else that's on the page, assuming that they were on the page. What I could do, so the syntax now, let's just do this in the XPath here because part of it's already built out. It's still a contains, but I want it to say it can be a senator and it can be, it can be a senator or it can be a representative. So this syntax is going to be very similar, except all you're going to do is say space or contains, and then similar setup, so period, comma, and then representative. Okay, close quotes. All right. If I go back to my capture text, now I have senators and I have representatives with that or, because now if you change this, you can make this an and statement and say and, but guess what? I'm not going to have anything because there's no one who's a senator and a representative. So, but in any case that you have to have that scenario, you could do an and as well. And in fact, let's go ahead and do a and. So let's look at one. So I want to look at, let's see, is it representatives? I want to look at only representatives that have the name Robert. Representatives. Okay. And okay. So, or no, senators, sorry. Keep it senators. So we're going to look at people who are senators and their first name or the name in the DOM element. They have a Robert either as a last name or first name. It doesn't matter. So what I want to say is I want to still do the contains a senator, and I'm actually going to change this to Robert. So the first name, so let's change it. So anyone with the name Robert, and then but I only want the not the senators but the representatives. So I want Roberts that are representatives, the two R's. So what I want to do is I want to say and does not contain, so the not contain. Now when I do this not, you have to put this in you have to say open parentheses. And this kind of makes it trickier because you notice this one is just open bracket contains open parentheses, but this one's going to have open parentheses contains and then another open parentheses for not being a senator. So I don't want the senator. I just want representatives because there's only representatives and senators. And then I'm going to have to make sure I get my syntax correct. And I look at my capture text preview. Right there I have Representative, Robert, representative, and so on. No senators there. I could try and say, and senators, and there's none. So that's how I know. So yeah, that's how you do it, and then a not. So we did the or, and then we did this is the and, but then also it not contains. All right, so let's keep going. I hope I'm not going too fast for everyone. I wanted to start out simple and then kind of pick it up a little bit and do a little more complex for those who would like more complex things. This is a great example, especially if you're looking, a lot of people scrape sites that might use like size of objects or colors or anything like that. You want to look for specific things, and it includes an identification number, or it doesn't include an identification number. And this is a great example of contains with an and not as well. All right, so let's do another one, last one on this page. And so what we're going to do is we're going to capture, let's see, all right, yeah, this is a good one. So if you notice here, some of these have districts. So this one, this representative from Hawaii has a district. This one doesn't. So what I want to do is I want to capture this. Let's make sure it's capturing the whole line here. Okay, capture text, and I'm just going to call it district. Okay, so I look here, and actually, let's do this. Let's get rid of that. Change it back to what I had originally, because I want to have everyone now. Now, if you notice, when I did this district, it threw it outside of my list. Okay, and note everyone is now in District 1. I don't want this, and the reason why is because this is an absolute XPath. All right, this means that it is not nested inside of the list. When you see, a lot of people get this, when you see a lot of these, the same number over and over and over, your XPath is incorrect and you have to fix it. So what I'm going to do, I always do this, is I just get rid of line 2 because I'm only going to be fixing this as the same XPath. Now, I need to nest this XPath inside of this XPath. So let's go ahead and drag this down. And it's going to give me an element not found, which is fine. And you notice here that Mozenda automatically knew that it needed to be nested, and all of a sudden my XPath changed. And sometimes that's not the case. It won't do that. And so what I would always recommend doing is you take this XPath right here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go in the DOM element, paste it in. It's going to take me to the name. And I'll probably actually go down to this one. So let's go ahead and let's start it here because he has a district 1. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the district. So here's the district 1. And so basically what needs to happen is I need to start from here and go down to this span with the district 1 in it. So let me just start the XPath here. I'm going to build it in the DOM. So my XPath, so the long string, it needs to start from the list, so this A tag, and it needs to go back up. So I need to go to, it looks like I need to go to the span, and then I need to go to the following sibling div, and all the way to this span. So let's just build that out right now. So let's say, okay, so go back up to the parent. So remember that was /.. All right, and then we're going to say following sibling, if I can spell. Sibling, and then div, the first div, because it's the next sibling down. And then I want to go to, let's see here, if anything in particular is going to help me out here. Yes, okay. So now I want Mozenda, my XPath, to look for this district, because the span, notice there's a span there and a span there, and it can kind of get confusing. And another span at class result item. That's kind of tough. It's going to make it hard. So I can't just say at span unless I am particular about the number. So what I want to do is I'm going to skip to, let's do that descendant. I'm going to say strong, because I want it to go to the strong tag first. All right, so it's going to take me to the first strong, but I'm going to say, let's use that contains we practiced. Contains, open parentheses, and it's going to have to say district. Okay, and then close bracket. All right. Now that I'm here at district, it's going to look for the district first, and then I'm going to say go to its following sibling, which is the span. And following sibling span. Bam, right there. So here's what we're going to put in. Okay, all the way to right there. You don't have to put the / inside the XPath unless there's two. Unless you're referencing a descendant, then you do it, but not if you're nesting an item in a list. So copy. Let's go to district. Okay, and let's see here. It's very, very specific, but I wanted to say, hey, look for district first, and then get its following sibling. Let's paste it. All right, so let's go to capture text preview. There we go. Now, slight problem because not all of them have it. A simple fix, if I say, hey, just make it optional there so I don't get the element not found. And that's how and so not everyone has one, but if it does have it, it's going to get the right number, and it's not going to give me Republican or Democrat because it's looking for that district. And that's really, I see that a lot, especially with pricing. You'll have a was price or a before price or a discounted price, and sometimes it'll capture the before price before the discounted one, and you're looking for the discounted one. And so we say, hey, look for the discounted price or look for the district, and then grab what's after that, and it works that way. All right, so I think we beat the dead horse on this Congress page. Let's go to another one. So I'm just going to close this one right.
Hey, Kenneth, we actually had a question come in that I'd be interested in. I think it's relevant before you quit out of that one.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
some of the examples that you were showing before were, writing out XPath that, say contains and includes certain words. Someone asked if, in those cases you can just do a refined captured text. So I think the larger question there is, are there things that you can do in XPath that aren't available through the, refining the captured text? How do you decide which way you're going to approach a problem, I guess?
So, I mean, the refined captured text is great for when you, if an XPath...
Can you show us how that looks? Go ahead and open it up while we're talking about it here. So, in your example, it was like the name. I think you said that Robert is one of the ones that you were looking at, right?
Yeah. So...
Or just senators or representatives and so on. So can you show us how that looks when you use the refined captured text?
Right. So if I just went to the refined captured text, for the name, say, it's going to say Senator Abner James. Now, the problem with saying, oh, hey, only capture, say, senator or representative, is refining the text is just saying, hey, capture the first. I can say capture the first word, and that's it. But if I'm trying to say capture only senator or capture representative or capture someone who has the name Robert, I have to make that change inside the XPath. So does that make sense? Is that what they were asking? Okay. Yeah. So basically, to kind of go off this a little bit, let me think of one of the better examples. So Mozenda does have the capability. So when I did this district with the contains, I could say, hey, only go in and look. I could say associate nearby text and look for district. And what that's going to do is give me a very similar XPath that says, hey, look for district and then grab the number next to it. And it's still going to give you an XPath, but it's super important to understand how we can build that out. In the refined captured text, let's say I captured the whole line instead. Or we'll just go back to the name. If I just wanted to capture just the name of the representative, all I have to do is highlight that person's name, and there's a space after it, and Mozenda will pick up the space. Now, if there's now say if it was an address or another factor, we'd have to play with it. We might have to use regular expression, but that's probably be another webinar for another day. But for now, we'll just leave it at that. And I guess if you have any more questions, you can go ahead and send them in and ask Andrew, and he can send them to me. But let's go ahead and go to this next site real quick. No, I don't want to save it. So we're going to go to congress.gov/bill, I think is what it was. All right, so this next one, let's go and start the agent. Okay, so I got my XPath, I got there, I'm going to pull up my DOM. I want to capture, okay, let's go ahead and do a list here. Okay, I'm going to get the bill number. All right, so I got all the bills, and there are duplicates once again. We already know how to take care of that, so I don't really want to spend too much time on that again. But it's the same, similar setup with the expanded and the compact we did with the at class. But I want to do something a little more complicated. So I want to look at this really quickly. So if I look here, and I see, so say I wanted to capture this which Congress, like the 115th Congress, and so we're going to name this Congress, and it gives me this long bill, 115th Congress. So if I wanted to capture this so when I look at this and I capture this whole span, because that's what it's doing, it's saying, so it's giving me the bill, but it's continuing on. That's why it's saying dot, which is saying self, and then dot, which is the parent. So it's saying, look at, hey, you captured itself. Now at this A tag, now capture the parent, which contains this 115th Congress. Now here's the thing. Like going back, let's talk about refine capture text one more time briefly. This is a perfect example of this, I think. If we go to refine capture text, so now in this Congress, I only want to capture the Congress, not the bill number. So I can go to refine capture text here, and I can say, whenever it pulls up, I can say only capture 115th Congress, and it will automatically refine it to do 115th Congress. If I don't want to do that, if I can put that in myself, I can say, you know, it was a dash space, or was it a dash? Oh, it's giving me the whole thing now. There we go. So I can, yep, make that, and it'll break it down into individual parts, but now I only want this one. So it's telling me new field. I don't want to do that. Let's change this and do, that should work. I guess it's not picking up this dash. So I can refine it too to only do 2017. Give me 1 second. It's not picking up my dash. And say, hey, only give me 2017, and does that. Or, you know, just give me this part. So we'll just leave it at this for now. So that's one way, and then all of a sudden, there. Now, it is, I know it's the same for every single one, so it is nested properly inside the list. The XPath is already correct. But I wanted to take a look at some more complicated syntax with this, especially with this 115th. Let's go back to it. There we go. All right, now if you look at this, some XPaths or some text bodies will have weird spaces. And it's kind of hard. Like there's a space after it, there's a space before it, and it can really throw off your XPath if you're having to type in the whole thing. And so what we want to do is, we want to get rid of those spaces. So this syntax we're going to talk about is called normalized space. And what this is going to allow me to do is I want it to get rid of the spaces in between and just give me 115th Congress. All right, so this syntax is simply it contains, because that's all I want is a Congress number, and I only want it to contain 115th Congress. So contains, open parentheses, and then I'm going to put in normalize dash space. Okay, and now this syntax period, which is every time you see a period, it's representing the self. So the self tag here. So hey, get the span. This is the parent. and get 115th Congress, period, normalize the space, so get rid of these spaces in it. I don't want that. So now all I have to do is say comma, which is the equals, and then 115 15th Congress. I can spell it. Okay, and then close parentheses, and it keeps me there. It's because it's already at the span. And that way, it's going to, what it's going to do is it's just all I have to do is type out 115th Congress. I don't have to type out space dash space 115th Congress and so on with that. And I can get rid of that. And some, this example we don't really see too often, but we do get the text bodies that have large spaces in them. You'll even see 2 or 3 spaces. Like this looks like it has 2 spaces in it. And when you're writing in XPath, sometimes you'll have to put those spaces, and this normalized space allows you to get rid of those spaces. It's very handy. Now, in this particular case, I had to do a contains because I only wanted the 115th Congress. I didn't want anything else in it. So that's why I did a contains here. But you can just do a normalized space with an equals instead. But if you have a contains, you have to put a comma because you're only referencing a part of that XPath. You're not, or that text body. You're not referencing the entire thing. So the equal sign, once again, like this, you'll see right here, this href has an equal sign. And if you put an equal sign, you have to type out the whole thing in your XPath. So remember that. If you only want to type out a certain part with it contains, it just needs a comma. All right. So the next one I want to talk about, so we look here and we have, let's go ahead and actually fix this XPath real quick. I only want it to say the class, I think it was equals. So I'm going to type out the whole thing because it's really short, expand. Perfect. Or was that not right? Expanded, I think. Was it? I should just look in the DOM element. There it is. Okay. So now I only have 100. Now, what if I wanted to say, okay, there's 100 bills. I only want I only want less than 50 bills. So 50 or less. We'll say 50 or less. So let's go. Actually, let's get rid of this so it's not that long. We'll go ahead and take it back to this so it'll have 200. So we'll have 50 or less bills, and we'll open this up, and we're going to use what we call position syntax. So this position, what it allows me to do is grab everything greater than, equal to, well, you don't need equal to, but greater than or less than a certain number that you specify. So if I only want items, the first 50 items on the page, for example, if I was looking at a site and I wanted the top 50 restaurants out of a list of 200 and I only wanted to grab the first 50, I can do a position. So let's do a position and open parentheses, close parentheses, and then I want to say it's going to be less than, so less than 51, and then close. And what this does is it gives me all the way to 50 instead of the original number. So you can do, whichever number you want. You can say, hey, give me greater than 51. And so this will give you the next ones after. Notice this number doesn't change here on the side because this is just a ranking of not on what's on the page, but if you go down and see the first one here isn't the same as the first one. It started from greater than 51. And so you can kind of play with that to see. Now, I think another important syntax is something called last. So sometimes we get, you want it to parse through the entire page, but you only want it to get the last thing on the page or the second to last or however you want. So this is going to be, let's go there. It's just called last. So we're going to go to the last item on the page. We're going to say open, close parentheses, always open close parentheses. That's never going to change. So right now, the last one on the page is HR 2723. Now, because I have duplicates, what I'm going to do is actually go up. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to get the second to last one on the page. Now, because typically to do this, you just say -1. and what this will do is it'll go up one more. But because I have duplicates, I'm going to say -2 in this particular case, and it just changed. So if I say -4, it's going to go up to the one after that, 25, and so forth by multiples of 2. Now, many pages, many items that people scrape, you're not going to have duplicates. So, simply 1 will take you to the next item. Above that one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And that explains that. So, and if I wanted to get rid of it, if I didn't want the duplicates, I could use an and syntax. I could say and then at class equals expanded, I think is what it was. Oh. All right, and so that gives me 100, and then I'll have to put this in. But this way, it'll break it down, and I'll be able to actually go down and change this number to whatever I wanted. Now, I wanted to, let's see, actually just get rid of this part. So the last thing I wanted to talk about that's a little more in depth that we do have a few clients use, and it can be very useful, are using parameters in XPaths. So when I mean by a parameter, I mean something that dynamically changes as the agent goes. For example, what if I wanted to, let's see, I only wanted to capture items, so the bills that had 115th Congress with the year 2017, this year in it. And I wanted it to parse through all the data, and it could only give me those that had 2017 in it, or another year that I specified. So most, you could do it contains, but there's another way to do it as well, and it's with a parameter. And so the parameters are really nice if you have multiple you want it to parse through multiple different things on the page that dynamically change. And so we'll pretend that the year is going to change. And so what I want to do is I'm actually going to create a custom value. So let's do that right now. Just custom value, and I'm going to call it year. Okay? And the value will be, I want this year. So it has to say 2017 in it. All right, so it's just going to show up. Every single one's going to say 2017. All right. Now, what I want to do for custom value year, I think it's Congress. Yes. So I can see in the Congress here, I want to see which 115th Congress has the year 2017 in it. Now, in this particular example, unfortunately, this page, all of them will say 2017 on it. But I will show you the syntax for this. So pretend that some of them say 2015 or 16 or a different year besides 17. We're going to take this year and plug it into the XPath for Congress, and to only give me 115 Congress has 2017 in it. So to do this, we are going, let's go to the DOM real quick. Okay, let's take this XPath, and we'll go ahead and go here. Let's take it to this. So what we want to do is we want to go back, and let's see, we need to do, okay. So we want to go back to the, we want to go back to the grandparent sibling, the LI, so that we can put in the parameter. Now the parameter is actually going to go into the parent, which is right here. So what we're going to do, oh, I see, okay. So what we're going to do is actually create another capture. So this capture is going to be right here. We're going to see if this date, sorry, I was mistaken before. It's not the 100th, this one, but this date. So let's go ahead and capture that, and we're going to call it sponsor. Okay. So this sponsor, it's got a lot of garbage in it, and you can refine the capture text. You can refine that out. But I only want the ones that say 2017 in them. And so let's just go back here. Let's go to the DOM. So what we need to do is we need to get down to this date right here from here. So our XPath is already nested properly, but I want it to go out, and I want it to go down and contain a parameter. So we are here. So what we're going to say is space, and I want to go up to the grandparent, so ancestor li, and then I want it to go down to us it's a child, but it looks like it's the third span. So instead of saying third span, I want it to say a span that has at class, because it's a different, it's at class result dash item. So at class equals result dash item, and then I want to put in my parameter. So it has to be this span right here, has to say result dash item, but it has to contain 2017 in it. So one way you could simply do it is just say, hey, n contains 2017. But what if you wanted to dynamically change? So the next page it says 2015, and you wanted that to be the parameter as well. So let's put that in there. So we say and contains our dynamic variable, which is the year that we put. So the contain syntax, so we have the period referring self, comma, which is an equal sign, apostrophe, and then the custom value field name, which is year. So I put a percent sign. So anytime I do a parameter, I always put a percent, so it's 2 percent signs, and then the field name inside that. So year, percent sign, and then close this all up. And let's see, do I need anything else? Close bracket. Let's see, what am I missing here? Li ancestor at class. I feel like I'm missing something. Result item and contains. Okay, so let's take this, and we're going to plug it into, I feel like I'm missing something here. Okay. So now here's the thing. You notice that when I put this in, copy, I have to do this. Okay, so this is saying a descendant with the ancestor li with all this information, and it'll take me there. Notice in the DOM element, it's not picking up the parameter because it's taking this as literal text. It's saying, oh, I need to look for percent sign year, percent sign. That's not in here. So you're not, the only way you're going to know this works is if you plug it in right here. And notice this, the XPath, the XPath element, it tells us, hey, this is an actual XPath because I know what you're trying to do with this parameter. So it won't work in the DOM, but it'll work in here. And so it still says element not found, and it'll give me nothing. But watch what happens when I test it. Give it a quick test. That's not where I want it to be. Oh, there we go. And it got it because when I test it, it tested live, and it gives me the actual, let's see if I can open it up. Yep, 2017. It has to contain 2017. Now I could change, if I want to change that parameter to something else, maybe, hey, only give me, let's see, maybe someone's specific name. All I have to do is change the custom value. The value for that, I could leave it as year if I wanted. But that way you're able to, you can change the year. A lot of people that use parameters, it's usually for years, or they're looking for specific prices on things, and they need it to dynamically change. And so this is kind of just a taste, and you can play around with this as well. So yeah, it's really useful and can benefit a lot of people with the parameters. So Andrew, that's everything on that I have on my list that I wanted to cover. Were there any questions I could maybe take real quick? I think we don't have too much time left, but
yeah, well, a couple of them that came in, I think I'll be covering part of the answer here later. One person asks if there's documentation for a lot of the syntax, and I think we have some help articles that will help with that. I'll make sure to include some links to those in the some of the follow-up emails that we'll be sending out. Let's see. One person asks, is it possible to capture the color of text?
Ooh, the color of text. It is only possible to capture the color of text if it's specified in the XPath. I think that's what they're like a font. Are they referring to like a font color or like? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be text. We have to see some sort of text. So if there's a font color, so like let's see, for example, Bill. I don't think we're going to be able to. It doesn't say anything with the color there. So.
Yeah. Okay, and that's what I suspected here. Well, let's see here. I think let me go ahead and get this up on my end here. I've just got a couple of other things to add before we wrap up here. Okay, I'll get this switched back over. Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for your time, Kenneth. I thought that was some pretty good insight, and if there are any other questions that pop in before we wrap up here, then we'll be happy to either follow up with you afterwards or address those perhaps in a future session. So thanks again for joining us, Kenneth.
Yep, no worries.
Okay, so before we wrap up today, I'd like to make sure to point out that XPath is an advanced tool. Not all websites are going to require custom XPaths. So we do have some of those useful articles on XPath in the Mozenda in our Help Center. Some of these are links to external resources. So keep in mind, though, if you're looking at some of those external resources, that Mozenda has implemented version 1.0 of XPath. Some of those external tutorials may have syntax that doesn't work in our software, so just keep that in mind. For over a decade, we've been developing Mozenda to be the best web data extraction tool available on the market. We've structured our support team and documentation to help you in cases where a website is going to require some extra attention. So if you find yourself running into problems using XPath that you're unable to solve on your own, make sure you contact our support team. In addition to our support team, we also offer consulting and training services to assist with more advanced websites. And so we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a link to our blog that includes a recording to this video in case you want to review or share it. And that's the time that we have for today. If you have any questions about the material we've covered, make sure you reach out to us by calling 801-995-4550 or by emailing support@mozenda.com. And thanks again for joining us, everyone.